Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. We're continuing to cover this sad story out of Russia. A Russian-American woman was sentenced to 12 years in prison on Thursday after a Russian court found her guilty of treason for donating money to a charity supporting Ukraine. Ksenia Karolina is a 33-year-old former ballet dancer who reportedly obtained a U.S. citizenship after marrying an American and moving to Los Angeles. She was arrested while returning to Russia to visit family earlier this year. Retired Marine intelligence analyst and national security analyst, I should say, Hal Kempfer, joining us. Hal, as always, thanks for coming on. I want to ask you, because her case was heard by the same court as well as the same judge that convicted Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich of espionage in July. Is she a political pawn now, a trade chip? Is that where this goes?
Austin, absolutely. That's completely what this is. I mean, if you look at, and the State Department put it pretty clear. I mean, she'd made a donation to a charity group, if you will, for Ukraine, and it was a little over $50. And using that, they have convicted her of 12 years for treason because of the, Russo-Ukraine war. And it's completely hyped up, but it's part of this ongoing thing that we have seen where they will grab any American citizen to include dual citizenship in this case. And we've seen that before in the past as well. And they will just do basically a sham trial just to put them in prison. Once they're convicted, and this just seems to be their MO, once they're convicted, they feel, at least in their minds, that they have higher value for trade. And certainly the whole purpose here is they would like to trade her for somebody that we have that we're holding of them, whether that's an arms trafficker or a spy or whoever. They're basically just trying to get leverage. And that's what we've seen all the way, Brittany Griner, same thing. Gershkovich, same thing. They put them in the trial, they run the sham trial, they convict them. They don't let little things like due process and rules of evidence stand in the way of a conviction. And then they put them in prison, and then they just make things rough for them to try and put pressure on us to give up more in exchange.
Has the U.S. depleted its ability to trade in light of that massive prisoner swap that happened earlier this month? Does something like that make it more difficult for people like Ksenia to get free?
It's interesting you asked that. I don't have an exact number, but what's been happening, and keep in mind, when you saw that trade that took place, that was a multi-country trade. It wasn't just the U.S. We had Germany involved, Norway was involved, Slovenia was involved. Turkey, of course, was helping to basically broker the whole thing. But it was a multilateral trade of moving prisoners around, if you will, to make that exchange happen. And it's the U.S. Yes, the U.S. does have some prisoners that we hold. On the other hand, Europe, our European allies in NATO, have a lot of prisoners. One of the things that happened after Russia went to Ukraine in February of 22 was that a number of NATO countries basically kicked out a lot of Russian diplomats. Many of those diplomats, and certainly the ones that they kicked out, were ostensibly Russian spies, part of their foreign intelligence services. And they kicked them out, sent them packing, which meant that the Russians had to rely on what's called non-official covers or illegals, whatever you want to call them. But they're folks that don't have a diplomatic cover. In many cases, in order to avoid being detected, they don't have any history of doing this stuff. So their trade craft and everything else is much worse. And what goes with that is they tend to get caught a lot. So we've been rolling up a lot of spies all over Europe and spies in the U.S. and elsewhere in the Western Hemisphere. And frankly, there's just a lot of spies to trade. And that's part of what Putin's doing is he says, look, I got to get a lot of my spies back. That's an obligation he has to his spies. And so he says, I'm just going to grab an American everywhere I can and, find some reason to put them in prison and then trade them. And that's his modus operandi.
Why did Russia even think to look into Ksenia's past? Was it because she was traveling with a U.S. passport?
I think they look at everybody that travels in there. Certainly anybody with a U.S. passport, they would look. They're going to hype up anything they can with anyone carrying a U.S. passport. But in her case, she also carried Russian citizenship too. And they were able to basically I think as I understand it, they're able to kind of work the treason charge because she still held the Russian citizenship, and she had given money to that Ukrainian group. So uh, yes, they're going to try and find anything they can. But the State Department's been very clear for a very long time. If you're an American, do not go to Russia. I don't know how much more clearly they can state that, but don't go to Russia. And she was in that situation. She had family in Russia. She wanted to go back and visit them. Her husband tried to talk her out of going. She was here. I'm in Los Angeles area. She was actually she works and lives here in Los Angeles, and her husband said no. And he went as far as Turkey with her, and then she went on to Russia. And obviously, not only didn't her Russian dual Russian citizenship help, it actually probably hurt her.
Well, when we talk about something like this, wasn't if it wasn't a Ukraine donation that they found, do you think they would have looked for any other way they possibly could have made something like this happen?
Probably. This one just made it easier. The thing that made it easy for them is when they saw the donation, they immediately went to treason. And the reason why is because it was going to a group that was aiding Ukraine. They see Ukraine as a terrorist, neo-Nazi, whatever you want to call it, state. This part of Russia that is, breakaway region or whatever that they want to bring under Russian control. And so that made it fairly easy for them from a legal standpoint to trump up charges to which to take her to court.